Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of Three Drams. I am delighted to have you here. It is another fantastic Christmas December episode of Three Drams, and this time we are up to episode 38. I am delighted to have you all here once again. It is so lovely to be wearing this Santa hat for what now is we've worn it a few times and it's the same Santa hat, so we're good on the old circular economy. But welcome all to everyone watching at home. This is of course Three Drams, where we bring you the best of Irish whiskey direct to your door. If you want a kit just like this, or you think you know someone who would love a kit like this and dropping 3 whiskeys to their door every month to meet the flavor makers and creators, make sure you check out 3drams.com, where you can either buy yourself a box or you can buy them for a gift for Christmas, where they can redeem it at any stage in a later date. So it gets them a little code. It doesn't have to be in January. It can be in March. It can be in April. So check it out on the website, 3drams.com, because it can make an absolutely fantastic Christmas gift. It is, of course, 21st December. We are in the wonderful 2023. And I am delighted to see you all in the comments section already. Before we get kicked off, as always, I do want to say a very big thank you to the guys in Irish Malt and 3 Drams who put this all together. As always, I am just the pretty face that shows up to talk to the flavor creators and makers, the guys in Irish Malt, particularly John O'Donovan, Robert O'Donovan, and then, of course, the team in Irish Malt who look after the organization, the packing, shipping all across the world, and also the canting of all the bottles. A very big thank you to them. To everyone in the comment section, let us know where you are joining us from. I love seeing everyone in there. Alan saying a very happy and Merry Christmas from Galway. Lovely to see you again, Alan. Martin Purcell first in on the comment section, and a Merry Christmas to you too. Lawson Kirkpatrick and Niall Lonergan, a very big happy Christmas to you guys. And Marissa and Maynooth. Of course, we've got our friends in Waterford. No doubt we will see the Glanmire crew come in, and of course the Walking Club in Shneem that join us all the time. There is, as we say, lots of people who watch all around the world. Quite a large number of packs go out every month. If you have a pack, and I said it looks just like this, you can watch live or after the fact, where you will also receive a discount code at the end of the stream that will let you buy either individually these bottles that we're trying tonight, or all 3 as a bundle. And of course, you get that discounted and shipped directly to your door where it is legal to do so. This evening is going to be a little different, so we have a slightly different promotion going on, but I'll tell you all about that in one moment. So I am Gary. You're coming in from the lovely shores of California. Lovely to have you in for the final session of the year. And Alan, thank you very much for your comments on my whiskey selection. The new whiskey shelves just up, so we're lovely, looking good. And of course, we have our lovely Element whiskey right here, because tonight we are in a fantastic takeover by Element Irish Whiskey, and of course their founder Fionn Cox. So you have no need to be listening to me anymore. We're going to bring him straight in. So I am going to pull this up just to show you. This is the takeover of Element Irish Whiskey, and we are here to be joined by founder Fionn Cox. How are you doing, sir? Good evening.
Hello, Matt. How are you? How's things?
I am all good. I'm all good. Where in the world are you?
I'm here in Dublin, in Ireland, with my
Ireland's a good place.
Yeah. No, it's good. Looking forward to the Christmas. Dublin's looking very good with its Christmas lights up at the moment. So, happy to be here.
Well, fantastic. I am going to, as always, pour Dram Ivor 1 into my glass, just so I have something to nose on. Before we do that, I always let you know that it is, of course, 43% ABV, just so you're not going to blow the head off yourself, sticking your nose in thinking it's cast strength. But we are doing an Element Irish Whiskey takeover this evening. It's a little different to our other takeovers where we try established products, but like your lovely whiskey you see on the background behind me, it's reversed for me, so I'd never do that thing right. But anyway, why don't you tell us what we're doing in the takeover this evening, and I suppose what you're going to do with the information at the end and why it's a little bit different.
For sure, yeah. So yeah, really excited about this one. And I suppose, as you kind of said, having the 3 different whiskies and hoping to try and get some feedback and input on each of the releases. So I suppose where the idea kind of came from is within the brand Element Irish Whiskey. When it comes to the development of the whiskies, we look to try and implement what we call kind of open innovation, or kind of like crowdsourcing. So essentially the idea of, getting the power of many and getting the input and feedback from as many different people from getting different perspectives together, and looking to create a whiskey, by the people, kind of for the people. So it's what we're doing here is where we've kind of been out speaking to consumers, gathering feedback and input, and we've decided that a single grain is something that we're going to look to try and bring out in the new year. So we were kind of thinking about, like, how do we go about gathering input and feedback from, a large sample size of people. And obviously, thanks very much to John and the rest of the lads in Three Drams and yourself. We said, wouldn't it be amazing to kind of do a collaboration whereby we can actually use this platform and obviously the many people who are already subscribed to gather their feedback and input, and ultimately create a whiskey, that's by the people. So I should say there as well, Matt, within this kind of open innovation philosophy, we have created, this is our third whiskey. So within the first release, which is the lovely bottle you have behind you there, which is the Fusion series, it's our blended whiskey. And this whiskey was developed with a kind of a small sample size of people. It was kind of informal, interviews and just kind of speaking to general people. But then with the second release, which was the lower series single malt, this whiskey, we actually kind of fully went into the open innovation model. And we actually went out and we spoke to consumers. We gathered feedback in regards to what kind of finishes we'd like. We then went back to our distillery, and similar to this, we actually got 50 ml sample bottles of the whiskey, and we sent them out to a sample of people, kind of Whiskey Society members and consumers, whiskey experts. Some people I see here, like Brian, the whiskey chaser, or Matt, the whiskey nerd guys that I think are here tonight, and got their feedback and input, and actually then asked them to blend their own using a pipette. So it was actually setting, within certain parameters, but actually kind of going beyond the A, B, and C, but ultimately try and kind of get their input into exactly what their preferences were. So then with that, we actually took that data and we went back to the distillery and we created a whiskey that was solely based on these open innovation principles. And originally it came out, we did a really small limited release, and based on the feedback we actually now had to take the numbers off the bottles because we've gone into created so many of them. And really, really positive feedback from that. So, really good that approach. But as we said there, I wanted to kind of open it up a bit more and get some more people involved. So that's what we're kind of here today.
Fantastic. So the three whiskeys we have in front of us, for those who have their lovely tasting card, we have a single grain in bourbon casks, single grain in Floridian rum, and then a single grain in tequila casks. Are these component whiskies, or are they potential single or batch releases on their own? How does that work in the world of open innovation and what we're doing here tonight?
Yes. So for this one, we decided we're actually going to do them on their own. So not say vat or blend the whiskies. Some people we spoke to, kind of said that, potentially just doing one single, cask is something that people would like to see. So we decided to go that route. So that's so ultimately what we see here are the three different whiskies. They're obviously all in ex-bourbon and then two of them into some finishes. But what we see here is one of these whiskies will be the whiskey we produce in the new year. So these are not components to say.
Okay, and what is this QR code that is placed lovely in our screen here? Why don't you give us a little background into that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So as I kind of said there, the idea is that there's going to be a voting at the end of the session. So once we've gone through each of the whiskies and got some, feedback and input on them, we're then going to ask people to scan that QR code. And if you scan that QR code, you can actually do it now if you'd like. It's live and it just says, what's your favorite whiskey? And would you like to give some notes on the whiskey that is your favorite? And then what we're going to do.
What's your favorite whiskey of what we've tasted this evening?
Of what we've tasted this evening. Sorry, I should say. Of the.
I get a lot of Redbreast 12s in there.
Yes. So, what is your favorite whiskey that you've tasted this evening? I think there's, what's your number one favorite? What's your number two favorite? And then there's the option to give some flavor notes there as well. And then the idea here is that whatever is the winner. So we're going to take all this information. Whatever one gets the most number one votes is the single grain that we're going to produce in the new year. So it's up to people. We know what we like and we know what some of our friends and family like, but we'd love to get the kind of crowd involved and ultimately get the input to find out what whiskey we're going to create. So yeah, the power is with the people, Matt. You know, whatever comes out today will be the one that is produced. And another thing I should say just on that as well is that with the flavor notes, so it is optional if you want to put that piece in, but we have a lovely infographic on the back of our bottle, if you've ever seen it, with the kind of different numbers and the notes, and whatever flavors are kind of our taste notes that come up the most, they're the ones that are going to be on the back of the bottle. So you're not just picking the whiskey, but you're also picking some of the appearance and decision in regards to what are the most common notes.
Okay, well, with that, why don't we dive right into bottle number 1, and we can tell us a little bit about this. I've already filled up my glass, as many of you will have seen. So this is your single grain, 43% ABV in ex-bourbon barrel. So what is the thought process? Why was this selected, and what are we tasting in this glass?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you rightly said, single grain in ex-bourbon. So what we're tasting here is a whiskey that is obviously spent all its time in ex-bourbon. And what we've kind of wanted to do here was that, you know, there's so much happens when you kind of finish a whiskey that sometimes, you know, changes the flavors, but also it makes adaptations. And when we had all these whiskeys that we were testing, we found that, you know, it's really interesting to see the kind of the differences and the changes and the impact that it happens from a finish. So we decided that kind of having the raw whiskey, well, not raw, but the whiskey that has been in the ex-bourbon, and then to be able to kind of see the impact that happens from the kind of the other two finishes, we thought it was a really nice one to kind of put in here. Because, you know, perhaps this might be some people's favorite, you know, without kind of more complicating the flavors. So I think it's a really, you know, kind of not great whiskey. I think it's like definitely got some, you know, kind of vanilla, kind of like shortbread coming through, and definitely on the nose. And it was one of those ones we kind of tasted. We said that, you know, it'd be rude not to put it in. You know, there was some very good feedback on it.
So is this essentially the base whiskey of what the next two will be as well, with different finishes?
Correct. So this is exactly as you said.
Fantastic. Well, with that, I'm going to say sláinte, a little sip. So it's very floral, a lot of sweetness coming through, a lot of that kind of toasted wood in the background, which having a good impact on the grain. I suppose, what for you, is this a comparison, or is this in threat of being a single release? I know you were saying this to see what the difference is against the other two, but is a bourbon cask grain on your radar?
I absolutely, you know, the way we've kind of set it up, each of them in their own sense could be the one that is released. You know, I definitely think that some of the flavors that come through, kind of as you mentioned, that definitely they're strong enough to be a release on their own, you know. So
absolutely. I'm impressed. It's very clean. It's very fresh. It has a lot of kind of creamy undertones, that sweetness. You know, you're getting into that kind of very creamy burnt sugar, vanilla. I like here Gary saying Eddie Rocket's vanilla malt milkshake vibes. You're into that big. Well, again, that's you're tying into creamy and vanilla on that, very much so. I'll have a little sip.
No, certainly, definitely. The finish is nearly like kind of, as Gary said there, the kind of like silky whipped cream or something like that. You know, I think it's got quite a good kind of subtle spice kind of finish to it, which definitely is that Eddie Rocket's kind of milkshake of sorts.
Well, Niall saying that it's beautifully sweet and oaky, and bar is high for the first whiskey, and I have to agree. Lawson saying good finish, leaving some spice on the tongue, which is, I mean, you don't want a whiskey that you forget about the moment you drink it. I do like that that sweetness, a little bit of oak spice remains. And Alan coming in with your shortbread, concurring with that, a little bit of vanilla, cream. Again, I think we're picking up a lot of the similar notes here. It's very expressive. 43%, all the samples this evening are going to be at 43. How did you arrive on that number for these samples?
Yeah, I suppose a couple of factors. But I think kind of the main one was that when we set out in creating our first whiskey, just about 2 years ago or so, we found that was the right kind of ABV for us, where we kind of, were able to explore the depth and the flavors, without kind of being too kind of robust in the alcohol sense. So I think that was kind of definitely key for us, but also in regards to the non-chill filtering, and having it to be above a certain percentage. And as well, always good if we want to get into South Africa. I think that's something that's on our radar, hopefully in the future as well, that having a 43% required for entering that market. So a couple of factors, but I think for us, it's just the right ABV.
All right. Well, with that, do let us know in the comments if you are still enjoying yourself and getting any different flavor notes we haven't brought up. With that, I am going to open Dram Iveragón number 2 here, or Iveragón. Why don't you tell us? We saw you probably about a year ago at this point on Three Drams, and you're talking about potential of South Africa, which may or may not have been a throwaway comment, but what markets are you in at this point? A year on, what markets are you targeting to go into?
Yeah, 100%. So as you rightly said, we launched in November of last year. So we're probably 2 or 3 years in the making, but only one year out on the market, and had a great first year. Really, really positive. I think that consumers are really up for something a little bit kind of modern, contemporary in regards to obviously our branding. And then obviously, what we're hoping to do in regards to the open innovation really kind of resonates with a lot of consumers. So yeah, we're in several markets. Obviously Ireland, like the US. We're launching in Canada soon. I was in Shanghai in China a little while ago, and they absolutely loved the whiskey. Loved the bottle and everything went with it. So hopefully be getting some of our first bottles into Asia soon. And we're also actually in Nigeria as well, which is a really interesting market for Irish whiskey. I think a lot of people don't think it, but it's really, really taken off over there. And I think it's kind of that smooth, accessible kind of versatility that goes with Irish whiskey, that really works with the kind of Nigerian consumers. So really, really good start. And I hope that 2024, we're going to be growing that most definitely. Some more countries in mainland Europe where we're still kind of quite small, but obviously in Africa and Asia and those kind of regions too. So hopefully they're gonna like the single grain that we choose today, Matt. I suppose it'll probably go down better in some regions than others. I think single grain is kind of an interesting one, where some more of the whiskey aficionados of this world often might say, oh, single grain, it's not single malt. I wouldn't be interested in that. But I think that, the category is definitely growing and it's kind of changing, and more people are kind of more open-minded to single grain. So I think, adding a single grain to our kind of portfolio makes sense, to try and kind of get it out there a little bit more.
So on that, why was single grain the next evolution for Element?
Yeah, I suppose ultimately comes back to our consumer, and speaking to, our consumers here in Ireland, but also in some of our export markets. And I suppose we knew we wanted to bring out a new kind of style of whiskey. So it was probably going to be, your single grain or your kind of more traditional pot still. And we, went out and spoke to the consumers, and we found that, based on, a couple of different factors they're interested in, and, ultimately as well, sometimes what they were doing with their whiskey. I think single grain is really very often kind of accessible and more versatile. And we found that, our consumers probably more open-minded to a single grain as they were a pot still. And the same might go with kind of price point as well. We hope that we'll be able to bring this out at an accessible price point, rather than, having something that's, over €100 or whatever it may be. So there are definitely two factors. And I think it's a great spirit, when we end up and we taste it ourselves, the different whiskies, the single grains we really thought were fantastic. So we said, you know what, let's have a go at this. But ultimately, as I kind of said, it's not about what I like or our team likes or even our friends and family. It's about what the consumers like, so that's why we're kind of here to ultimately, single grain is the direction based on some feedback. But now, what is the one we're going to release? So looking forward to your feedback. Get that QR code going soon, guys.
Exactly. Andrew Kennedy dropping in the comments section here saying that will you use open innovation in other markets to see how consumer preferences differ? So obviously, I assume that most of the open innovation you're doing up to this point has been Ireland focused.
Yes, so there is a couple of probably international people who have been sent out packs who will be involved, but it is primarily Irish focused. And we do hope that as we grow, we will be able to potentially, well, definitely gather much more feedback from different geographies, but we can also be more specific if we'd like to. Taking a market like Austria, for example, we could go to we could be in Austria and we could then gather a group of Austrian consumers and conduct the same process, and essentially then you're making an Irish whiskey for the Austrian palate, or then you can recreate this across the world essentially if you'd like, which could be cool. But as well with the open innovation, it's definitely the vision we have, and that's why we're kind of testing different approaches as to how we will go about it. But our kind of grand vision is that we would actually have a QR code like the one you have there in the corner actually on the bottle. And it would be a really simple approach whereby a consumer could scan the QR code and within like 2 or 3 touch points, give us some kind of feedback. And it could be really basic, for a consumer who perhaps doesn't know anything about finishes, but, do you like sweet or sour? Kind of basic questions that would allow us then kind of choose or decide on a direction for the releases. And we think with that would allow us obviously to gather much more feedback and input from a larger crowd. But we're still working on it. We're kind of building up and ultimately trying out different approaches regards to gathering this kind of feedback and input.
All right, fantastic. Well, on that, let's jump into this. This is dram number 2. Though this is your single grain in Floridian rum. Before we jump in, is this full maturation in rum or is this a finish in rum? And if it's a finish, do you have an idea of how long it was finished for?
I do, yes. So this single grain was matured in ex-bourbon, so just like the number 1 one we had there. So it was actually the same cask. And then in March of 2023, it came out of its ex-bourbon and went into a Floridian rum cask, which was actually sourced from Floridian distillers in Florida in the US. So a little bit on that, but...
Okay, well, again, I'll say sláinte. And then maybe if you give us a little bit about what we can expect in this whiskey, it'd be delightful to nose along with you.
Definitely honeysuckle, fresh kind of cooked grass, banana. I think it's amazing always when you take the, what it is, 8 or 9 months in a Floridian rum cask and the impact it can has on the whiskey,
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big difference. If anyone has any of their dram number 1, you can kind of bounce between the two of them and see the impact of the difference. And what was the selling point to you for the Floridian rum over other finishes?
Yeah, so we actually, again, the nature of there was lots of different casks. We kind of went through and got different flavors, but we spoke to some of our consumers again, and what we found was that some of the more kind of modern or kind of contemporary finishes were kind of things that people were interested in. The likes of the tequila, or the Floridian rum, or kind of things that people could relate to a little bit more, kind of made sense. Some of the flavors coming through, as opposed to say a Marsala or Madeira or sweet Muscatel cask, where people might not be as aware of the impact that might have. But we found that when we kind of talk to our consumers, that if you say, hey, it's in a Floridian rum cask, they can definitely think, oh, rum, some of the rum flavors coming through. So we wanted to kind of go modern with the finishes to kind of have things that kind of related a little bit more to the broader range of consumers. And then, based on some of the internal kind of testing and friends and family and people as you do, these two kind of came out on top as the most premium finishes, so.
Fantastic. Lawson's asking, are these natural color or is there E150 in them?
These are all natural color. These have just been taken from the barrel.
So Martin is saying there's a big difference between 1 and 2. This is more complex and the spiciness higher with the creaminess down a bit. And I would agree that creaminess and that big kind of vanilla note has definitely been wrangled in a little bit. But there's a lot of that fruitiness going on in it as well.
100%. I think that
Might feel a little spicier on the end, but much softer. And Lawson apparently very happy that they're natural color. I think Lawson was also very happy that they were non-chill filtered. Actually, yeah.
good stuff,
So
Lawson.
whatever you're saying is clearly going down well with Lawson.
Up Ennis. Very good.
But
no, I think I definitely agree with that though, Matt, as well. I think that some of the vanilla or the kind of creamy kind of flavors are coming through are kind of matched well with some of more of the kind of fruity, kind of tropical fruit, even kind of like cinnamon kind of coming in a little bit. I think it kind of rounds it out a little bit more as well.
So Roisin saying it is an incredible flavor and it's hard to believe it's the same percentage as the first dram. I'm assuming that you're saying, I don't know actually which way you think, Roisin, the ABV is, if that's higher or lower. Let us know in the comments because I'd love to unpack that a little bit more. But it's great. Is a completely different experience for this, for even just that, whatever it was, 9 months. And Gary's saying very smooth, like putting greens of Augusta National. So a poet and a sportsman on our hands. So we have Whiskey Pep is active in the comment section. They want to know, will we be able to find this in liquor stores or off licenses, not just online? And I apologize that I don't know where Pep is from, what location geographically, but I'm going to stay with Ireland for the beginning. Will we find it more in the off licenses in Ireland?
Yes, absolutely. So you'll find us in all good whiskey shops, you know, the likes of Celtic Whiskey or James Fox, our drink store here in Stony Batter, and also in Waterford and across the country really. We're in a couple of super values. We are still small, but we're growing. But there's actually, if you go onto our website, www.elementirishwhiskey.com, you'll find a where we're stocked button. And if you go on that, you'll see our 50 locations that we're stocked across the island of Ireland.
Okay. I see Michael Higgins coming in saying he's getting mango coming through, way more fruit depth. And I mean, I think we're, for probably the first time, the comment section and myself are all agreed. We're all hitting the kind of same flavor notes. Flavor is very subjective, and not that anyone's right or wrong. Just that usually everyone has myriad of different flavors coming through, but this is very centered on a lot of the same profiles. And then Niall saying there's a map of all available shops on the site coming in right behind you on the store locator. Rosie was saying thought it was a higher percentage in the second dram. And there you go. So that's again, the difference in flavor you're getting through there, whether or not it's wood spice or pepperiness on the tongue, perhaps disguising itself as a higher ABV. And Whiskey Pep is in Blanchardstown. So in Dublin, you'll be able to find this in stores.
Yeah.
Independent.
Nearest to, we're in Malloy's stores. There's one out close enough to Blanche, I believe. Maybe Clonsilla. So Malloy's liquor stores as well. And several of the carryouts around as well, Pep. So keep your eye out for it.
Oh, well, absolutely fantastic. So for me, I'm wondering, and I asked you this, I'm going to ask this question because I asked it the last time we were on, and I am going to pour dram number 3 into my glass while I do it. So when you first came on, it was the first time we'd heard of open innovation. It was a new concept to me back a year ago. And I asked you a question then, and I'm going to ask you the exact same question now. In the world of whiskey and consumers, are all opinions equal, and are all opinions valid in the sense of you're going out and getting, say you get 50,000 respondents to a survey. Does every vote carry the same weight in terms of open innovation, or how does that work in that world?
Yeah, good question, Matt. And I think probably a similar answer to last time. But for sure, I think that we don't necessarily give somebody who's been drinking whiskey for 50 years any more points on the scale than someone who's only got into in the last year or so. And I think, the nature of that is that if you can get a large enough sample size of people, and obviously, taste is so subjective. So people have such, different opinions and, probably consume whiskey in very different ways. But if you get a large enough sample and you can find, one person who likes to drink, potentially cask strength only neat, and you have another person who, perhaps likes to mix it with ginger ale. And if you get, and everyone else in between. And our kind of vision there is that if you can get enough of a sample size and you can get all these people on, in one scale, that you'll find a sweet spot in the middle of what kind of appeals to, each of these consumers. And so when it comes to that, we definitely, be if you're a whiskey aficionado of this world, or you're just entering the category, we'd like to hear your opinion, and we'd like to have you involved in selecting the whiskies,
Is it kind of like a bell curve that the fringe elements will essentially space themselves out, and you'll take kind of the whatever 95% confidence in the curve, or is that too deep into it?
To tell you the truth, we haven't yet. We will at some stage. I'll share with you, Matt, the first person I show when we get it, but we haven't yet had enough data points to actually get that bell curve, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But perhaps if enough people vote tonight, we might be able to get that bell curve. We'll send it out via email. But it is that, it's about finding that kind of middle cohort, and kind of balances out the outliers, if you will.
Well, absolutely. And when you're going to, I suppose, these international markets, do people get the open innovation when you're talking to retailers or consumers in Nigeria or Germany, or how does it translate? How does it travel?
Very well. So I think the term open innovation, it's probably bold to maybe be using that quite right now, obviously. But when you tell people we're about crowdsourcing the ideas in order to create a whiskey, by the people, everybody gets that. And as I kind of mentioned it previously, I think that everybody can resonate to that, and they're like, oh, that's cool. I'd like to get involved in selecting a whiskey. So definitely when you take it to some of these export markets, and just like whoever asked that question the other day, many people are like, hey, can we do it, here in this particular region, and, get some of, my friends and different people we work with involved in selecting the whiskey. So I think it travels quite well. I think the people are quite interested in it, and they see it as something different. It makes you something that's a little bit, beyond the master blender and the kind of traditional approach to whiskey. So I think that really kind of appeals to them too, and they see a place for it. So it's been very positive so far. Yeah.
Okay. Mike's coming in and he says he doesn't think the crowd are that wise. I presume we get back to data points onto that one.
Yeah. Well, actually, it'd be good, Mike, even if I give you a shout out there, because if everybody scans this QR code tonight, you probably have your favorite. Maybe we'll see after the whiskey number 3 here. But that QR code in the bottom left, if we get everyone can scan that and put in their input and their feedback in regards to picking their favorite whiskey. So we'll see how wise the crowd are later, when we kind of get the results back from that. And I believe perhaps it could be the same one that you have in your mind. So please do fill in that QR code.
So I'll ask you one more question on open innovation before we jump into the third whiskey, just because for a lot of people it'll be the first time hearing it, and for me in the industry, it's obviously a novel idea. It's new. It's exciting. Is there a fear or maybe a threat of finding enough data points of the general crowd that leads you to a Jameson, in the sense of an entry-level whiskey for a premium brand? Is there a fear of ever kind of, because the most popular Irish whiskey in the world that sells trillions of cases, I think it's 12 million cases now or something, is Jameson. Is there a fear that, or a threat that you could homogenize the data points to Jameson just by sheer volume of Jameson drinkers?
A bit to unpack there, but I don't believe so. I think with our whiskey, we're obviously, premium, and we kind of have our parameters in regards to what we want to do. So we're never going to be kind of, your entry level blend, or anything like that. It's always going to be, a little bit more on the premium side, and we always hope to, be innovative with our finishes in regards to, not just bringing out your, bourbon matured in an Oloroso sherry or whatever else, but try and be, you got tequila here, you got Floridian rum, the last one we had kind of cool, kind of innovative wine finishes. So I don't believe you'll always be, in a different kind of segment, I believe, so perhaps you're finding the happy medium, but it's in a bit of a different category, if that makes sense.
Okay, cool. Well, why don't we jump into dram number 3, and you tell us a little bit about this Mexican tequila cask. I presume it's a similar length finish.
Yes. So similarly to the Floridian rum, it was changed to cask in March 2023. And this one went into, it was actually a Jose Cuervo tequila cask, where it's been in for 8 or 9 months or so.
Well, it's a very different, again, different profile on the nose than the first two. You're into, again, building on that first whiskey. For you, what stood out about this cask that made you put it into the mix?
Yeah, I think we kind of thought it was just a very kind of well-rounded whiskey. It has the kind of vanilla, kind of shortbread flavor that we kind of had earlier, but brings in some of the kind of fruity notes, the kind of stewed apple or kind of citrus, kind of tangerine kind of coming through it. And we thought that, this was definitely a kind of premium whiskey, and we could see it, being worked very well in many settings, be that on the rocks or neat or in a cocktail or, that kind of thing. So we felt that it was one that really, really burst with flavor. So it's been included here.
And when you're saying, you work through those different styles on the rocks and neat and in a cocktail, do you ever, I suppose, put the whiskeys through a test? Do you ever chuck them in the freezer for a half hour? Or I suppose just in terms of different consumers around the world consuming differently, I presume there's different ways to consume. Do you ever find because I was doing something very similar to this recently, where the host invited everyone to throw a couple of cubes of ice into the whiskeys. They thought it actually elevated some of those flavors, muted, and it elevated some of the sweeter ones. And it was just an interesting comment to make.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's amazing though. Even the impact of, say, like if you put ice into your whiskey, I think it changes the mouthfeel an awful lot. And obviously, with a drop of water or something like that. But I think our parameters for our whiskeys, Matt, is that they're always smooth, accessible, and versatile, and innovative as well in regards to, as I kind of said, for that our consumers, we find they do all sorts goes on. It's not just your neat whiskey consumer, but it's also your kind of making your base for a cocktail or whatever else. And it's about then obviously the accessibility is that it will suit somebody who's been drinking whiskey for 30 years and has a really mature palate, but also, as I kind of said, the younger guys, the people who are in the newer entrants to the category. And they're kind of exploring whiskey for the first time, and to give them a positive experience for Irish whiskey, so they're the kind of parameters we always set. So definitely whatever you see in an element bottle will always be kind of fulfilling that criteria, and that's generally how we go about selecting our particular whiskies.
All right, fantastic. Lawson, who you two have just been vibing the whole night now. Lawson saying, I'm not a fan of tequila rum, but the tequila finish is much smoother than the rum finish. And almost at the exact same second, D. Maloney said this one seems smoother than the rum finish, and that citrus hits on the finish. Really enjoying it.
Very good.
So again,
hey, and now that we've had a taste of all three whiskies, Matt, I should say, so I didn't actually say this earlier, but we're going to do a competition with that QR code. So if you have a scan of it there on your phone, you can fill it in, as I said. But we're going to do it that the winning whiskey, so the one that is the most popular, gets the most number one votes, obviously is the one we're going to produce. But two people who are vote number one, so essentially guess what the rest of the crowd were guessing, or have the same preferences, are going to be sent 2 bottles of our new single grain when it comes out in early next year. So a little bit of gamification. You're not just getting to give your feedback, but also an opportunity to win something. And with that as well, please do put in your notes, even if you want to put in the notes of the one you think is the favorite, because potentially that could end up on the back of the bottle too. So I think it'd be cool to get a whiskey into your hand, or 2 bottles even, that you've had a say in making, but also have some input on the back of the bottle. So please do scan that QR code.
Exactly. So I'm just going to show the camera out here. There's my lovely face. There it is in 2 angles. I'm going to use it now. I'm going to throw it onto this QR code. I'm going to open it in Chrome for me here. If the camera, this is what live telly, huh? There we go. We're going to get this up and open. Yeah, there's the things. Never works when you want it to work, huh? There we go. Open in Chrome. And we have got the form right here. So you've got elements. Three Drams feedback, and that's where you can put in the information, your favorite whiskey, which there we go. As I said, the camera's backwards to me, so and that's where you get to put in the information, and then you said, is it 2 people who get picked out of that?
Yeah, so to whatever was the whiskey that gets the most number ones, it's going to create.
Yeah,
be released, and then there's 2 individual people are going to win 2 bottles each of the Element Lore single grain. So this whiskey when it's released in the new year.
That's fantastic. So I presume they're going to have to put in their email address onto the email address line to do that. So do not forget to do that. Excuse me. I have seen someone saying they can't open it on their phone, and they're asking for the link, and I'm going to post the link right now. So you should see that in the comment section. Hang on. It's jamming up on me here. There you go. Lawson being very ambitious, thinking there was one for everyone in the audience. I know you said the 2 you were vibing tonight, but yeah. So
hey, and the other thing I'd say as well, Matt, is that there's a couple of people who obviously join later or in the next couple of days to watch. So we will leave that QR code link open. So you have a couple of days to log your feedback if you can't do it right now. And also with the follow-up email is sent, we'll put the link there too. So you can have enjoy your whiskey some more and make another decision on it if you need to have another sip of each as well.
Exactly. Mike D saying when he scanned it, it auto-populated his email address. It does do that because you're logged into whatever Chrome thing. But if you read under the email address, it says not shared. And then if you go down, there's an email address add-in part. So that's why it auto-populated, because it just had to log you into Google Sheets or whatever form you're using. There's a number of comments already in. Marissa's fast in. She says she's already voted. So well done. Andrew saying he wants the link. I have posted the link on both Facebook and on YouTube. So you should have the link popped up there now multiple times. Martin saying number 3 is growing on more and more with every sip. There's a lot going on, really nice. One of the things I like is someone mentioned grapefruit, and that kind of dry bitter citrus, that kind of almost like expressed citrus oils, is coming through now. I mean, taste is a great suggestive vehicle. I wasn't smelling grapefruit until someone said it, but now actually I'm just dragging it out with every sniff, and I quite like it. So, and then Whiskey Pep wants to know what the design of the bottle will be, because the other 2 are brilliant. I'm actually going to grab the bottle here.
Going to be in a glass bottle like this, Whiskey Pep. So as Matt has on the screen there. But we are going to change the label color. So we're thinking we're going to have a different color on it to kind of make it look distinctive. But it will fall under the Lore series that we have. So we have 3 kind of series of whiskies. One being the Fusion series, which is the one Matt has there, and represents the kind of blended whiskies in our portfolio. Then we're going to have the Lore series. So we have the Lore series single malt that came out last year. And then now we're going to have the Lore series single grain, so kind of more of our innovative twists on more traditional whiskies. And then we have the X series, which there's no whiskies there just yet. And the kind of vision with that is that we can kind of partner with synergistic brands, so kind of getting maybe different beer or wine casks and looking to kind of do a collaboration of sorts. So hopefully now in the next while we might have something more there, but this one is going to fall under the Lore series and going to have a different color label on it, but in the same, beautiful bespoke glass that we have.
Fantastic. And did the bottle take long for you to construct?
Quite a bit of time, as I kind of mentioned, we launched in November last year, but there was a couple of years of in the making and, drawing out ideas and going through it all. But big shout out to Board Bia, who were very helpful in kind of getting us to kind of get the design together and supported us with the development. But I'd say there was a good 18 months or so over and back with designers in regards to getting the glass as it is today. And where it actually came from, I think, is kind of interesting too. It was my business partner was in the gym one day, and he saw all these people in the gym with these kind of big kind of water bottles. I don't know, those kind of fancy looking ones. They look a little bit like our bottle. And he was kind of looking at it, and he was thinking, if consumers are going to spend 40 or 50 euros or whatever buying this bottle, that they're going to carry around with them, it's nearly like an accessory. Wouldn't it be amazing to create, a kind of a consumer good, or use that kind of shape and design feel and bring it into the whiskey? And we've done just that. And I definitely find that the bottle, the kind of very bespoke, the engraving, the minimalist simplicity of it all is definitely kind of been a key selling point. The kind of put it on a shelf amongst its peers, and kind of the history and heritage piece, and it's something that does stand out. So we're very, very happy with it, and will be probably our unique kind of look, definitely, with all of our whiskies moving forward.
Absolutely. So let us know in the comments section, as always, what your favorite whiskeys were in the order of which you enjoyed them. For me, I definitely think number 3 stood out to me. So I think I'll have to go on to my feedback form now and do a plug-in for that Mexican tequila cask. And for interest point, I traditionally, and through my career blending whiskeys and selling whiskeys and tasting whiskeys, traditionally I don't like tequila casks. And it's one I've steered clear of, both using and also drinking. But this one is my favorite of the evening. It's something I very much like, so it's nice to see. I see now there's people coming through already. I'm seeing a lot of votes for 3. Lawson saying 1, clearly sticking to the guns that rum and tequila aren't for Lawson. Michael Higgins saying voted only one winner here tonight, and that's the tequila. So I'm seeing a lot of favorites coming through here. A lot of 3-2-1s.
And I'll actually jump in there, Matt. I can actually see the feedback coming through live here on the other side, and
okay. I
have to say that you might be in for a chance of winning the bottle of single grain. Perhaps it's pretty tight. But of the votes we have so far, the tequila is at 44%, and the Floridian rum 33%. So it's close, but the tequila is coming out on top. So a few more votes in there, and we'll see what comes out in the end.
Absolutely fantastic. So, Sean, if you were to leave people at this tasting with I suppose what brand message or idea of elements should they go away with, having met you here tonight?
Yeah, well, I suppose very firstly is thanks very much for being involved. You've now better be known to you or not, even by scanning that QR code and giving us the feedback and input, you've just had a say in creating an Irish whiskey that will be out on the market in the new year. So thanks very much for that. But do keep an eye out for us. And as I mentioned on our website, we have a suggestion box where you can kind of put in your information, but also an email kind of slot where you can sign up to our newsletter. And we're often, doing engagements like this or trying to ask people for feedback. Free whiskey included some of the time. So do drop in your email address, and we can have a chat if you'd ever like to speak about anything. But constantly looking to kind of build out this community and get people involved. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, and please do put in a vote, and perhaps you'll be winning 2 bottles in the new year.
Exactly. Now, of course, if you are a 3 Drams subscriber and you have the box with you, we can't leave you away without a discount, because the guys in Irish Malts always do a lovely discount for you. And it is my understanding, because tonight we tried 3 very top secret whiskies, that we are going to be holding a 10% discount on all of the Element whiskies that are readily available. So I believe there's both the Laura and the Fusion. If you go to your email inbox, you should have a discount code from Irish Malts. And if you don't have a discount code, what are you doing? Get subscribed. We're here having a great time talking to Fiona and all the flavor makers and creators that we've had this year. So check that out. Get that into your inbox or into your cart. Get it posted out to you. It's more than likely too late to get it before Christmas, just because of the date. that we're on. Yeah. DPD, if you order it right now, DPD can do next day delivery. So you might get it Saturday. I promise you nothing. I don't work with Irish malts. So I don't know when their last day of shipping was. And I could have checked that before the show, but I did not. So that's a failing on my behalf. But yes, check it out. Pop them into your cart. Get them off to you because Fion's making some fantastic whiskies. Again, I'm seeing tons of people coming through telling what they liked. Roisin coming through with the bourbon cask. But she said the bourbon was her favorite, but would probably buy the tequila because it's the one that she's never come across before. So I'm seeing there people are very happy. And there was a comment about my shelves, and thank you about my shelves. It wasn't what tonight's about, but it's my first showing of the shelves. So I'm delighted you like them. To everyone at home, a very big thank you. To everyone who's watching after the fact, we do have some great subscribers in specifically Brazil, Japan, and in Canada who watch after the fact. So a very big hello to you. Good morning, good night. And then, of course, the O'Donovan brothers who make all of this possible with Irish Malt and Three Drams. A very big thank you to them. And Fionn, to you, thank you for bringing us through these fantastic whiskies and teaching us just a little bit more about open innovation and letting us help you create the next new wave of Element Irish whiskey.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much, Matt. Pleasure as always. Thanks very much, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.